September 13, 1814, 6:30 in the morning. 19 British warships glide into position outside Baltimore Harbor. Then, they open fire, all at once. For the next 25 hours, over 1,500 cannonballs and rockets tear through the sky, aimed at a single fort. The British have the range. The Americans don't. By every rule of siege warfare, this fort should fall. Pause. It doesn't. Because 300 years earlier, a French cannon shattered an Italian wall and changed the shape of warfare forever. This is the story of the Star Fort and the flag that refused to fall. For centuries, height meant safety. The higher the walls, the stronger the fortress seemed. Medieval castles were built with towering stone walls, narrow battlements, and round towers that allowed defenders to fire arrows along the length of the walls while staying protected. Many castles were constructed on hilltops or steep rocky cliffs. Attackers had to climb difficult terrain before they could even reach the gates, exhausting both soldiers and siege equipment. Against ladders, battering rams, catapults, and arrows, these fortresses were incredibly effective. For generations, they appeared almost impossible to conquer. But then, a new invention changed the rules of war forever. Gunpowder artillery became more powerful, more accurate, and more reliable. Massive cannonballs slammed into walls that had stood for centuries, shattering stone with every impact. Towers that once symbolized strength became easy targets. The very height that had protected castles now made them more vulnerable. Almost overnight, everything military engineers believed about defense collapsed. The age of the medieval castle was coming to an end, and a completely new era of fortress design was about to begin. When powerful cannons made medieval castles obsolete, Italian military engineers realized that simply building thicker walls was no longer enough. They spent decades reinventing the science of fortification from the ground up, searching for a design that could survive the new age of artillery. Their solution was remarkably clever. Instead of tall vertical walls that absorbed the full force of a cannonball, they built lower walls with angled faces. Cannon fire would often strike at a slant, losing much of its destructive power as the shot glanced away. Behind these stone walls, they packed enormous amounts of compacted earth instead of leaving the interior hollow. Even when a cannonball broke through the outer stone, it buried itself deep into the earth rather than causing the wall to collapse. The greatest innovation, however, was the angled bastion. These pointed projections allowed defenders to fire along every neighboring wall, creating deadly crossfire and eliminating the blind spots that had always been the greatest weakness of medieval castles. Every corner protected another. Every wall was covered by overlapping fields of fire. This revolutionary design became known as the Bastion Fort, better known today as the Star Fort. The success of the Star Fort spread with incredible speed. Within just a few decades, Italian engineers had carried the revolutionary design across Europe, changing the future of military architecture. France, Spain, and the Netherlands quickly adopted the new system. Portuguese engineers took it even farther, building powerful star forts across their overseas empire, from Brazil to Goa in India. But the Star Fort didn't end the arms race. Instead, it forced attackers to invent entirely new ways of breaking through these nearly impregnable defenses. One of those innovations was the sap, a zigzag trench dug step by step toward the fortress. Its shape protected advancing soldiers from the deadly crossfire of the defenders. The defenders answered by digging deeper ditches, extending trenches, and even tunneling underground to stop enemy miners. Every new solution created a new problem, and the race between attack and defense never truly ended. By the 1600s, siege warfare had become a battle of engineering rather than courage. Victory no longer belonged to the largest army, but to the side with the smartest military engineers and the best designed fortifications. In France, Vauban perfected the Star Fort, building and modernizing more than 300 fortresses. His designs became the gold standard of European military defense and influenced armies for generations. In the Netherlands, Cohorn refined the system even further, creating powerful double-ringed bastions like those at Naarden. By 1700, the Star Fort had reshaped the military map of Europe and changed fortress warfare forever. Baltimore Harbor in the late 1700s. A narrow peninsula called Whetstone Point guarded the only deep-water approach to one of America's most important ports. By the 1790s, growing tensions with Britain and France made the old earthen fort inadequate. A stronger, more modern defense was urgently needed. In 1799, French military engineer Jean Fontaine was assigned to redesign the fortress. Drawing on European Star Fort principles, he began building a completely new stronghold. The new fortress took the shape of a pentagon, with 5 powerful bastions. Each one was carefully positioned to cover every wall with overlapping fields of cannon fire. Strong brick walls replaced the older earthworks. They were built lower than medieval castles and carefully angled to reduce the impact of incoming cannon fire. The completed fortress combined European engineering with American strategy. It was named Fort McHenry, a star fort that would soon face one of the greatest tests in its history. By 1814, the United States and Britain were locked in the War of 1812. After burning Washington, D.C., the British turned their attention to America's vital port city, Baltimore. On September 13th, the British fleet anchored just beyond the range of Fort McHenry's guns. From there, they began a massive bombardment, hoping to force the fort's surrender. For the next 25 hours, cannonballs, exploding shells, and Congreve rockets rained down on the fortress. The defenders fired back relentlessly, refusing to abandon their positions. But at such extreme distances, neither side could fire with real accuracy. The battle became a test of endurance as much as firepower. What truly protected the fort wasn't just its walls. 22 ships had been deliberately sunk across the harbor entrance, preventing the British fleet from moving close enough for a decisive attack. Unable to advance and running low on ammunition, the British realized the fortress would not fall. Their attack had failed, and the fleet was forced to withdraw. As dawn broke and the smoke slowly cleared, the defenders looked up. The enormous American flag was still flying above Fort McHenry, a symbol that the fortress had survived. A young lawyer named Francis Scott Key had spent the entire night aboard a ship in Baltimore Harbor, watching the bombardment. As dawn arrived, he looked toward Fort McHenry and saw the American flag still flying above the smoke. Inspired by that unforgettable sight, he began writing a poem called Defense of Fort McHenry. Those powerful words were later set to music and became the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States. The real story isn't just about one battle. It began in 1494 when a single French cannon shattered an Italian wall, proving that centuries of fortress design could be destroyed by a new weapon. That moment sparked a revolution in military engineering. Over the next 3 centuries, the Star Fort spread across Europe and beyond, evolving into one of history's greatest defensive inventions. The journey ended in Baltimore Harbor, where a pentagon of brick and earth held the line against the British fleet, long enough to inspire the words that became a nation's anthem. Rome built empires with the sword. The Star Fort defended them with mathematics, engineering, and geometry. Sometimes the most powerful weapon in history isn't a soldier. It's a brilliant design.